Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks again for tuning in tonight. Welcome to Tales from the Pits. This is a podcast where we're going to talk about different stories within the casino industry. Tonight, we're going to feature Michelle, and here are your hosts, Jay, John, Mike, and Danielle.
Hello, welcome to Tales from the Casino Pit, episode 16 with Adrienne Talonchick. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and Spotify. We're also streaming live on 3 platforms: Casino Industry Canada Facebook group, Casino Dealer J YouTube channel, and my Facebook page. Shout out to everyone watching or listening on any of our platforms. My name is Michelle. This is my first time hosting, so be kind. Jay's taking the night off. I'm still learning how to use some of these things. So let's do this part. There's me, my name, my handle, pretty much all my social media. And yeah, so with me tonight is also, see, I'm slow at this. Still getting the hang of it. John is helping me host tonight. So here we have John. Can you say hi?
Hey guys, thanks for joining in again. This is always fun. Everybody's sweltering here in Edmonton. So if you are watching, hopefully we can take your mind off the heat. To Jay's channel, because this is kind of cool and the podcast is really cool. And I'm really looking forward to listening to the stories from Adrienne and Michelle. Melted.
All right. And yeah, it is freaking sweltering hot here. And our guest tonight, Adrienne Talonchick Rosum. Just say hello, introduce yourself just quickly.
Hey, so I'm, as advertised, Adrienne. This way, Adrienne. I have survived this massive heat wave, and I am here to remind you all that cooler times are coming, because it is a lot cooler out here in Victoria.
Definitely looking forward to that. So for those who don't know, Adrienne and I have actually known each other for a long time. We went to junior high together. So we've known each other since we were about, 12 years old, I guess.
Longer than we haven't.
Longer than we haven't. Yes, much longer than we haven't. So I think I just so you played poker for a long time, and we're going to talk about that. But I kind of wanted to start with what you were like growing up, to kind of set the scene before we talk about how you got into poker. So before you started playing poker, before you turned 20, kind of how would you say you were like growing up?
I was trying to think about this earlier because I was just having a laugh. Growing up, I was a rule follower. I was somebody who really just wanted to perform and please others. So in school, I followed the rules. The most terrifying thing would be if a teacher was disappointed in me and those sorts of things. And that really was a big part of who I was growing up. And Michelle can attest that I was a goody two shoes. And, some of that still persists today, but definitely the following convention and standards, I drifted away from that.
Yeah, so I can attest to that. Adrienne was pretty straight and narrow. She was kind of the one always telling us that we shouldn't be doing things. So yeah, it was definitely interesting going through high school with that dynamic.
I was thinking about it, because earlier today I was just kind of thinking back over how it shaped who I am today, and all the different challenges that kind of came with it for me. And I just remember so profoundly getting any feedback from anybody was a very, very emotional response. So even in situations where people were like, "You did great," I remember always feeling like I was going to cry. In my first job out of university, I got a performance review that was really good, and I sat and I cried in my manager's office, and I was just like, wow, this is kind of a little bit strange to not even be able to receive kind of any criticism. And yeah, when it came to playing games and things like that, and my family always played games. We played whist, we played other card games at family gatherings, and I don't think anybody had any fun if I lost, because I couldn't, like, I and it's embarrassing to me. And now that I have young kids, I see sometimes that like profound attachment to winning. But yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Adrienne, can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
were you the type of person that flips the Monopoly table when you're losing? You're one of those, oh, I hate you all. Are you one of those people?
I think I was more like, I don't think I was physical, but I was like very, like, would be fighty or cry or be angry, like very much so. And I just more than one board game in our house got ripped, and not even by me, like just as like, you can't play this anymore. And it was my fault. I didn't think it was my fault at the time, but it was definitely my fault.
Have your kids followed in the same passion for winning as yourself?
Yes. But I was trying to think of a way to say that wasn't just directly yes. Like, they definitely enjoy winning. They enjoy succeeding. And my kids are 7, 4, and 2. And so the 4-year-old, very much so now, he is hesitant to try if he thinks he'll be beat. And I feel like this is really normal for his age. The 7-year-old now can look and play at a game, and when he loses, I think we've done a really good job in terms of both fueling the desire to win and taking losses as an opportunity to improve or be better.
Cool. So I'm going to show these are early pictures. So this is, I look like a narcissist here because I'm in all these pictures too. But this is just Adrienne and I. The one on the bottom left and on the right-hand side are school pictures. So it just so happened that in one of our class photos, we were sitting right next to each other. I think that was grade 11. And on the right, I think that's grade 8. Adrienne's at the bottom
8A,
right. Yeah. And I'm on the top left. I was a bit of a tomboy, if you can't tell. And then the one in the middle at the bottom is actually my baby shower. So we would have been 20, just under 20 there. And then the one on the top left's a bunch of people we went to school with about, what was that, 10, 15 years?
I think it was our 10-year high school reunion.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It would have been, yeah. So yeah, that was just early stage. So what, kind of moving on to poker here, and I know the answer to this question, so I feel silly asking it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How did you get started in poker?
So it actually is a bit interesting because we can compare stories, because this is the story I tell. I tell the story as like Michelle and I were friends, but then you had your son when you were 20.
20, yeah.
And we still went out, but we weren't bar stars, and so we would go to the casino because it would be fun. And I remember, I think like the number that sticks in my head is we would each bring $50 and we would play whatever. And if we made money at the end of the night, we would split it. And if we lost, like, that was, what we would have spent anyway. So it was just like a fun night out. And then I just remember one day you were like, you need to come play poker. And I was like, no, thanks. I think blackjack is great. Like, what's wrong with blackjack? We like, this has been good. And you're like, no, I think you need to come play poker. And then I remember you teaching me, but it might have been when you were teaching me Omaha then. So it might have already been, no, because it was always the half games. And I was like, okay, two cards, must use two. And then I remember just sitting behind you, watching you play, Michelle, and being like, okay, I could do this. And then Wow, I'm actually remembering people's names now from when I first sat down in Palace. I went into Palace and bought in for $100 and played some 3-6 and was terrified and probably folded way too much. And the people in the casino were really nice to me to start out. You know, when you see new players, sometimes they're not treated super well. But I guess in 2002, it was an all right time. The people I'm remembering are like Kevin and Troy, those two guys being friendly with them.
Mhm.
And I remember I entered a tournament in one of my early stages, fixed limit hold'em tournament, the peak of all games, right? And I finished second to Jerry Carter. And I remember I had a chip lead heads up. And I could it was as though everybody around me, like their volume was on max and my internal volume was on like 1. And I could just hear them saying like, she's got him out chipped 8-1. Oh, she's in trouble and all this stuff. And I mean, and I lost. And I just probably, I mean, I probably had 0 chance really, even with the chip lead that I had. Because I had no idea about pot odds or any of the poker strategy that maybe would have served me well in that situation. And then I probably came back most nights.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Jerry Carter, for those who aren't big in poker, Jerry Carter is a known tournament player from Edmonton, but has played, I don't know if he's originally from Edmonton, but lived in Edmonton for a long time when back then played a lot at tournaments and played across Canada. As a very successful tournament player. He's actually on the cover of the Canadian Poker Player magazine with one of my articles in it. He's on the cover of that magazine.
I was so intimidated, like because I didn't know very many people in the poker world, but I think I even still knew him. Like,
Right.
or at least by reputation. And
Right.
and I mean, it might have as well have been me playing hockey against Wayne Gretzky or something, like, you know, in the 80s. For all intensive purposes, like I was just like,
I think lots of people would have been like that at that stage, playing against him anyway.
I'm up for a rematch though.
Yeah, we'll try and get him.
I'm not scared anymore.
So your handle, like when you're playing poker, and it still is your handle, but was definitely more your poker playing handle, is Talonchick.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
So my first vehicle, it was my dad's midlife crisis vehicle, I guess. He probably won't watch this. But he bought a 1992 Eagle Talon, and my dad never really drove a whole lot. And so by the time I was like 15, 16, I was like, hey, that's my, and it ended up, it became my car. And, you know, I really just enjoyed it. I've always been the type of person who loves cars and loves to drive and had a big car stereo. And so I would post in like car threads before Reddit was a thing. I don't even know where I posted, but, you know, like would always be in kind of these groups and mods. And we had my group of friends, and every Thursday we'd go wash our cars and drive around, and it was just so much fun. And so when it came time, when online poker came onto the scene, I was like, what's my nickname? And it was just continued from the DSM. That's what it is, DSM threads. Diamond Star Motors. So.
Nice. And that stuck for a long time. I mean, you still use that handle now.
Right. Like it definitely, there were so many years in Vegas, like going down for the World Series of Poker, going down for anything that there's certainly people who would call me Talon and would pause if you asked them what my first name was.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that she has one.
Yeah.
We're just going to go with Talon.
It's like Madonna, right? It's just, yeah.
It would be a pretty cool first
exactly
name,
like
though.
Madonna.
Yeah.
Talon would be, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it'd be unusual. I mean, like, I don't think I've ever met anybody called Talon before. I mean, it'd be a cool name.
I think Steve R's son's name is Talon. The
Really?
games manager. Yeah, I'm actually almost positive that his name is Talon. But yeah, it is a cool name.
Yeah, it really, and certainly in my online circles, people thought like, oh, it is that you have long nails, and I've never really had long nails, but it's always been cars, always.
So I think like for you, like I know your kind of most of your history, and I think the thing that people would find most interesting about your poker history is, I mean, you were a PokerStars pro for many years. So can you talk a little bit about like how that came about and what that experience was like?
Yeah, I was a pro with that site.
Oh,
With
sorry.
PokerStars. No,
The
no,
site that shall not be
it's
named.
it's just such a different site now than when I did represent them. From 2011 to 2018. And so 2011 in the online poker industry was a wild year because that was the year that is Black Friday, which is the year that the DOJ shut down online poker for the most part in the US. And that's only relevant because that's when I was in the midst of negotiating. So what happened in early 2011 is I had made friends with two guys they were on the 2+2 poker cast anyway, and Adam and Mike. And we had been to the World Series a few times, hung out a few times. They were from Vancouver, are from Vancouver. And I got a call out of the blue from one of them. And he said to me, like, hey, I heard you didn't get it. I was like, get what? And he was like, oh, that you didn't make the cut for sponsorship by PokerStars. And I was sorry, what? And he was like, didn't you apply? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, okay. And so then I was like, wait, I got cut for something that I didn't want and I didn't even know I wanted, and they cut me? Like, no. Honest truth, like it wasn't even on my radar, and I was like, you can't tell me I can't do it. And so I ended up then like basically putting together a resume and an application saying you need me on your Team Pro Online, as it was called at the time. I said, like, I represent an awesome demographic for you. I am a player who is recreational plus, like I wasn't pro at the time. I was working a really good job as an occupational therapist at the hospital, but I was playing a lot of hours. I was getting Supernova was the status at the time. I was putting in a lot of volume on PokerStars and playing all sorts of different games, not just Hold'em, but Omaha High-Low Split, all the 8-game stud, and the more cards, the better. And I just made my case, and then I was approached by them, and they said, like, they basically said, we're not sure. Well, Black Friday happened, and then they came back around and said, we don't know what's going on. Everything's so crazy. Let's revisit it. And then a few weeks later, they're like, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Sure, we'll sign you to a 6-month contract, I think is what. No, it wasn't. It might have been a 3-month contract, to be honest. Like, they were just like, all right, here, we'll give you a bit of money. Let's see what you can do. And I got a lot of publicity, a lot of media attention as somebody who worked in a really respected job and was showing that poker isn't just for the boys. It's not just for the people who, like the old school cigar and sitting around the table kind of image of a poker player, like that. It is so much bigger than that. And it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, I love how that happened. I don't know if I realized it was 2011. I actually thought it was before that, because I still have some other pictures here that I want to show that are definitely 2011. What's that, 10 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So so had you played in a World Series before that happened? Yeah. Okay. What year did you play in your first World Series?
My first World Series main event was 2004.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize it was that much time between you playing pretty significant poker to the time that you were with Stars. I thought there was less time in between that. So that's really interesting. These are some pictures of us going to Vegas. This is
Happy New Year! I
We
wonder
went
when
for-
it was.
Yeah, we went for New Year's. I think that was all the same trip, wasn't it?
It
might be
looks. Oh, my bangs tell a different story.
Oh, maybe it was 2 different trips. Yeah. Yeah, so Alex there. These bottom 2 are definitely New Year's, and then the top 2 maybe a different trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so these might be closer to. So you want to talk about these pictures, Adrienne?
Sure. This is early. This is really early. Oh, Brad Booth. I adore Brad. And Steve, he finished second to Joe Hashem in the main event.
So just
the top left is Steve
okay.
Dannenman.
Mm-hmm.
He's a funny guy. He's a real nerdy, funny guy. So these would all be, I would say 2004, maybe 2005.
Yeah.
And I met Steve at the top of the club at Caesars. I was there with just a bunch of friends, and I can't remember. I said something just kind of. The interaction was really funny, and I think maybe he asked if he could take a picture with me because it was good. But with then the pictures with Jen Tilley and Phil Luck and Marcel Lusk. Nobody will ever accuse me of being good with names. In the first few World Series I went to, because the big names were so big, right? They had such a cult following. Antonio, all like Chris Ferguson, Phil Hellmuth, Phil Ivey. They all had such a following that they actually kind of had booths. There was almost like a trade show where they would sit and you could come, and really they were edified as these crazy celebrities. And it was just so much fun. Yeah, that's the same day because I'm wearing the same shirt. And and it was just it was such a neat experience for me because I have never really been intensely into celebrities, and it really leveled the playing field in that I was just like, oh, they're just people. They're just poker players. They weren't anything. Yeah. And Brad Booth. I met Brad at kind of the height on the bottom left there at kind of the height of some of his celebrity, where he was in Poker After Dark and some of those shows. And I was playing blackjack, just sitting by myself at the time playing blackjack. And he came and sat at the table with me, and we just started talking. And I remember he said oh, well, kind of implied that I might know who he was. And I had no idea.
Don't you know who I am?
and he got a real kick out of that. He's like, Yukon Brad, and I was like, no, but we can talk. You seem cool. And then afterwards, I found out so much more. And yeah, we stayed friends for a few years. I haven't heard or talked to him for a long time now, though.
Yeah. I got to go back one before we keep going forward, because I think this in the timeline, this comes before. So I was just at Adrienne's in Victoria, and she had this pen. And why did you have this pen?
I have no idea, because I stole it from the poker room, or maybe it was from when I waitressed. I don't, it's just one of those things where I haven't seen that pen in years and years, and then you were about to show up, and all of a sudden, wow, here it is. Like, and how did it get here? Because I had a house in Edmonton, I had a house in the Okanagan, and then we've been traveling, we've moved around, we've packed up, and then right before you come to my house, like, oh look,
Surfaces.
this pen, there's no area code.
There's
like,
no area
how
code. That's how old it is. So you worked at the Palace. What year and how long did you work there?
So I was going to say I don't know, but I do know because it was when I was still a university student, because
Oh,
that was
wow.
why. So it was 2001 or 2002.
Was I still working there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I stopped.
That timeline, I mean, it makes sense because I know why I quit,
Right.
but it also doesn't make sense because I really liked poker and I don't think I was playing poker then. So that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Interesting.
Do you know what year the poker room opened in Palace?
Well, they always had the room at the back. I don't know what year the
Mhm.
room at the back opened. I'm not sure. Jay might know better than me, but I'm not sure. Someone in the comments might know if anyone knows what year the poker room at the Palace opened.
Because I only ever knew the room at the back. I never knew poker anywhere else. But so I had gotten my schedule for my semester of school. I was studying to be an occupational therapist, and it was like I had 3 days a week of classes or something like that. And I was like, well, I guess I probably should get a job. Like, I didn't really feel like I had any excuse to not earn some income.
Yeah.
And that seems so crazy. It has to be, though, because I wouldn't have done it because I started working as an occupational therapist after I graduated. So I waitress cocktails, water, beverage from the bar for 3 weeks. And it was all right. I didn't mind it. But then what happened was I got into the actual school classes and they were like, oh yeah, we only list this on your calendar twice a week, but you have it 5 days a week, both of these classes. And I was just like, oh, that's far too much.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me the hookup. I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And keep the pen.
Yeah, and keep the pen and find it a long time later.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to poker, you mentioned a couple of these guys actually. So I don't know if this was before or after at the same time as the other pictures. Well, one, you have the same shirt. Yeah.
Oh, you can tell by the hair color, right? And how long my bangs are. So top left with Antonio is it has to be that same year. I think that's probably 2004 because it was right before I turned 25. Well, a few months before I turned 25, because I remember that had been one of my goals when I started playing poker is I want to play in the World Series main event before I turned 25. For some reason, that was a big deal to me. Yeah. And so, with Phil Ivey, with Deep, with Dearden.
So a lot of these guys are pretty well known, but so the top left is Antonio. Can you say his last name?
Esfandiari.
Esfandiari.
This was obviously like a photo op with him, but I also then, because of my group of friends, I just remember being out in the parking lot at the Rio one day, and he was driving either to valet or picking somebody up, and he leaned out the driver's seat of his car and he was like, pick a card, and he totally did a magic trick. And I was just like, wow, that's so cool. He really is a magician.
Yeah,
because that's his nickname for anybody who doesn't know.
He's known for doing stuff like that, I think.
Yeah.
Middle's Phil Ivey. He's pretty well known and was heavily involved with Full Tilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Top right, Freddie Deeb.
That's right. Yeah.
And everyone that even watches poker a little bit in Canada would know Daniel Negreanu on the bottom right there.
Yeah.
And then bottom left, I don't know that gentleman as well.
I'll have to Google it. His name is, I think, Frank Dearden.
Okay.
No, it's not Frank. Hang on.
So these are all World Series photos, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not his name. But I just remember going and just setting that as my sights that I was going to play in the main event. and a $10,000 buy-in, and insane money, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the first year I did play, I won a seat on Poker Stars, and I probably spent about $5,000 to $7,000 in satellites trying, which was kind of at some stage. Then you get a little bit like, oh my gosh, now I've invested so much in these satellites and I still haven't materialized a seat. Because in those days, if you won a seat, you also then got swag. You also got your hotel paid for. You also got travel allowance. And so like it really made it quite manageable. And then the next year I won my seat for $52, which was perfect.
Primo.
And then after that, I think there was one more year that I won a seat. But what happened was they started to allow you, the real wouldn't, our Harrah's wouldn't let online sites do third-party buy-ins. So they couldn't force you to pay. So then it was really like you had to pay anyway, because you could win your seat, but then you could opt to have $10,000 in your account or be bought into the tournament. And so
less entries.
At the time, I was like, yeah, how about I'm going to take the $10,000 and I'll play the 1500 PLO8 or a different event, because I was already at that time enjoying high-low splits and other games more so than Hold'em.
So for people not like in poker all the time, PLO8 is pot limit Omaha high-low, or pot limit Omaha 8. And that is Adrienne's specialty, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And favorite game, yes?
I get really torn. I love deuce to 7 triple draw. I really love deuce to 7 triple draw. And so for anybody who doesn't know deuce, affectionately known as deuce, it's a game where there's no board, there's no up cards. Everybody gets dealt 5 cards, and you have up to 3 draws to make the very worst possible hand, which is 7, 5, 4, 3 deuce.
The straights count. Like it's not like Omaha 8 where you ignore straights. In deuce to 7, you can't have a straight. Yeah. It's considered a high hand only.
Yeah. Flushes, straights are bad news. Right. But I just love the magic of having no extra information on the board. All the information is in bets and the person and the player and how many they're drawing, and how they look as they peel the corner and see what they get. And so I really enjoy that game. But in terms of if I had to only play one of those games for the rest of my life, it definitely would be Omaha high-low split.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that deuce to 7 is definitely more to the roots of poker, right? I mean, other than it's a low game, but it's more like, you dealt your 5 cards and all that kind of stuff. Welcome back, John.
Sorry about that. I had to jump off a little bit. There's a bit of an emergency. It's like
that definitely happens. So I have a few more kind of poker topics here, but we definitely want to move on to some other stuff. But here's some other pictures that it's kind of a mishmash of different stuff. So you want to talk about what's in these?
Sure. So on the left in the journal was an article on me, that like a full page article that the journal approached when I signed with Poker Stars. They got wind, and so immediately after Poker Stars signed me, I got to show them like, look at this free media I got you, and it was a pretty fun sort of reason to be in the paper and to have people like see my face again after high school, because we spent so much of our life from kindergarten to 12th grade with so many of the same people. We went to a French immersion school, and so it was really small, and I knew the families and my classmates so well. So it's kind of cool to see where people end up. And I guess that was just like 5 years after high school. And I really would have paid to see some of the reactions for people who knew me in high school than to see that. Like, it could have been pretty funny. The top middle is me, this is at TwitchCon. So for a period of time, I would stream on Twitch, and Twitch, for those of you who don't know, is just a broadcasting platform where people broadcast whatever. Some people do art, some people cook, people play all the
Video games.
yeah, but there's a name, the fighting games, but poker as well has a big directory. And so there's Kevin Martin, who was on Team Pro Online at the time, and Jamie Staples. And Kevin Martin also won Big Brother Canada.
I was going to say that. I remember seeing him on Big Brother.
Yeah, and
he still streams on Twitch now today.
He does. He took a break, but he came back, and he's with GG Poker, I think, sponsors him now.
Yeah.
And then the picture of me there in my white stripy shirt is just patched. I'm almost certain that is playing in the Bahamas, because that's playing live. And the only live play I really did after my kids were born was in the Bahamas, because it was a really great spot to be able to convince my in-laws to come and get free childcare while I could play. So yeah, and then in the bottom is winning a tournament in the Bahamas, and that is my husband Ryan now. So I think that's before we're married, so that has to be 2012, so before kids even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love those. So Jay, people are telling Jay that the Palace Poker Room opened around 1994 in the back there. No, that's not right. That might be the one at the back. Like, that might be the room before it was a separate room at the back, because I started at Palace in 97, and the room at the back it was after I started in 97. So that must be where they first started playing poker, was in 1994. Go ahead, John. Were you going to say something?
Adrienne, I was going to ask. I mean, like, it's kind of cool. I really like. I mean, you've led such an interesting life, and like when you said earlier, like you're pretty straight laced in school, and you did everything you're supposed to do. You went to university. You went, a job, and a respectable job. Actually, a respectable job. I mean, not like anything unrespectable, but anyway. And then, how did your family react when you're like, "I want to give all this up, and I want to go become a professional gambler"?
Right. So the only person I really kind of cared about, like in terms of reaction, was my mom. And I think I took a really graduated approach to it, in that I played small amounts, and I was always very honest with wins, with losses, with what that looked like and what that meant. And so I was still checking off all the right boxes. I got a nice car, I bought a house, I still had my like the healthcare job that makes parents feel proud, and that I really loved being. I loved being an occupational therapist. It was an excellent career. Just the downfall was working for someone else and having to go every day.
Having to do the job every day, yeah.
Like actually, like having to go. I was like, and for a long time, I actually worked casual, which really suited me. If people went on vacation, they'd be like, "Can you cover for 2 weeks here?" Sure, yeah, let me cover, and that worked really well for me for quite a while. And then it was after I met Ryan that we moved away from Edmonton and we moved to the Okanagan. And at that point, it was when I was getting we were getting our mortgage. The mortgage broker was like, "So you're going to get a job, right?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "What? But you are, right?" And I was like, "No." And Ryan's like, "Yes, you are." Because as anybody who has worked in conventional or maybe a harder to show income on paper job knows that banks like your T4s. And so then I was like, well, yeah, maybe I should get a job. And so I did. And I worked at it for a little bit, not a ton. And then after my first son was born, I went back and worked a little bit and then just eventually let it go. And finally, in the last couple of years, I've cut my identity as an occupational therapist, and here we are. So but in terms of reaction,
You eased her into it.
yeah. and my mom loves a good game of cards. Not gambling, but that's also not exactly true, because in Ireland, and John, you're Welsh, is that right?
I'm from Wales. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Got it right.
I was like, don't offend him. Do you play whist there?
Yeah, we used to play
'Cause,
whist. I mean, like, we used to play. Playing cards is really popular, right? Like back home.
Right. And so my mom grew up in Ireland, and they emigrated in the 70s. My parents emigrated in the 70s. And so we would go back to Ireland and we'd go to whist drives. And I remember being in my early teens, maybe even younger, playing whist with all the white-haired all ones, and you would enter and pay 5 punts or 5, and there'd be a score for top lady, top gent overall, and all the rest. And I would win more than my fair share. And I certainly developed a love for kind of being compensated for showing your skill. And so I don't think it was that foreign to my mom that she, to have a daughter who then, had a hankering and enjoyed playing cards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the cool things that I like about us doing this is we get to meet really interesting people like yourself who've done different things in gambling and been different places, and we've all done, kind of some cool stuff in because of the gaming industry. Looking back, what do you think? In hindsight, do you think, man, I should have done that? Because for me, I never went to Sun City, and it was always a place that I knew people worked there, and it was amazing to work there, but I never went because of the whole apartheid thing. So looking back, what thing did you think you should have done that you didn't?
Played more. I don't know. Poker got really a lot more difficult in the last 5 to 6 years in terms of the people who are really intensely successful at poker now study a lot more than I ever did. And in the early 2000s, poker, you could win pretty easily, with a little bit of discipline and a little bit of knowledge. That money was available because people didn't play well. And I mean, there's still definitely some areas and some spots where people don't play particularly well, and they're there for a different reason, right? Because everybody goes into the poker room for a different reason. And that's one of the things that has always rang true for me, is some people are there because they just want to spend that money. Some people are there because they're trying to earn supper tomorrow. And I don't know, the poker room feels like a great equalizer. You all get your spot at the table, and you get to play how you want and do what you want and spend what you walk away with however you want. In terms of, is there anything I wish I would have done? There's probably something so blatantly obvious that I'm missing, but the one thing that remains on my list is I would really, really eventually like to play the $50,000 Players Championship tournament in the World Series of Poker.
And do you remember how long that's, because the 10,000 event used to be the biggest event, and so how long ago did they introduce a bigger buy-in event?
I wonder.
I'm not sure. Maybe someone watching.
I feel like I feel like the main event has always been the main event, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that there's always been a bigger buy-in event. It wasn't always.
Maybe not before Moneymaker, maybe after Moneymaker.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was always $50,000, but because
I think it was 25 for a while.
Yeah. But I feel like that's a tournament that I would really.
Item,
I think that is such a defining tournament, because if you have a weakness in terms of looking at all the different games of poker, you can't hide. It really, you really have to be a well-rounded player to be able to withstand that.
Can you explain the event a little bit? Not everyone would really know.
Yeah, so the Poker Players Championship is, I believe, 8-game. And so what 8-game is deuce to 7 triple draw, fixed limit hold'em, fixed limit Omaha high-low split, Raz, stud high-low split, no limit hold'em, and pot limit Omaha. And they play, I think, 8 hands of each and go through the rotation. And each table you just go. And so you have to be able to shift gears and pay attention and just really, really get it.
Yeah, that would definitely be a hardcore event.
Yeah. But in terms of, I was fortunate, like I spent my 20s really, really engaged in the poker scene. I was going down to Vegas every 7 or 8 weeks, probably. At that stage, I was gambling a good bit in the pit as well, playing blackjack, playing whatever. I was maintaining a diamond status with Harrah's. So they would pick me up in the limousine and send me to my suite. And, I could get a free hotel all the time. And oftentimes my flight was covered. And, there was a certain amount of gambling, but it always felt worth it. And it always just felt, it just really invigorated me. It really encouraged me to just figure out who I was. And, like I wasn't answering to anybody else when I was down there. I always got such a kick of going through the airports, for example, and they'd ask, like, do you have $10,000 cash or more on you? And I'd be like, yep. And the look of shock that I would get. And then they would say, well, like, why? And I was like, well, this is why. And then they're like, okay, well, we just have to count it. But for the most part, every time they would count it, they were just like more enthralled by seeing me, who, whatever, right? Like they judge people for a living, but they would see me and then leave with a totally different impression of who I was. And it just gave me such an ultimate freedom to explore and do what I want. And that is living a life that really doesn't have too many regrets. I don't know. Michelle, do I have any regrets? You can be my auditor.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I've always thought you live one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here was like, yeah, you played, you're a poker pro, online pro, and that's super cool. And like, if that's the only thing people know about you, that would be really cool. But I think the thing that's the coolest about you is kind of the whole life you've led, from like, stereotypical proper career to very much not orthodox life now, right? Like have 3, like we'll get into it more, but you have 3 children, both you and your husband work at home, kind of doing your own thing on your own schedule, a lot of freedom there to spend time with your kids and to just live your life how you want to live it, right? It's quite idyllic. And I know it probably doesn't feel like that all the time, right? But like we all have stuff in our life that's hard, but yeah, it's cool. And the way that it happened, I find very interesting, kind of the progression of how you've gotten there. So
I definitely look back and it, because of the work I do now, which we can talk about, a lot of the work I do now involves having people like find out where they form different beliefs, where they form different thoughts. And so I often spend time thinking like, wow, if I told 15-year-old me what I'd be doing at 41, what would she say? She would not be impressed, but she would not. But if I told like 22-year-old me where I was, she would be like, come on, like mind blown. and even like, and it just gets me so excited for the future because I can't even imagine where I'll be in 10 years, because at about 27, I just really committed to myself that I wanted to make every year better than the last. And it has gotten better. You know, there have been ups and downs, and you know, I turned 40 last year, and all of a sudden got arthritis in my hip, and I was like, hey, that's not really cool. But you know, but still, like, we marvel almost every day with, like, this is our life, this is what we live. And just that there really isn't limits. And sometimes that can sound really patronizing, and sometimes that can sound really like, okay, yeah, it must be nice. But I just really have found that in my life, in my clients' lives, that the more we embrace curiosity as to what's available to us, just the more that is available to us.
Mhm.
And so often in my days, like, if people find out, like, you played poker professionally, oh, I could never do that. You homeschool your kids, even pre-COVID, oh, I could never do that. You drove to Disneyland with a 3-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a, I don't know, 4-year-old. I could never do that. And I mean, our response is just like, is that a thought or a fact?
Mhm.
And if it's a thought, why do you think that? And what if you just let that go? What if you just said, maybe I can do it. And if I fail, who cares? I get to come back better. And that's certainly something that I didn't embrace for a long time. That's one of the greatest gifts that poker gave me, because in poker you fail every minute. You know, like, and when you fail, it's costing you money, which then is costing you time because you had to go earn that money, and now you're losing that money to this person who is worse than you or whatever. And so, like, poker gave me a lot of opportunity to fail, but to fail forward.
Yeah, I love that. So this is kind of along those lines of what you were talking about. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, because it's kind of like, you know, when I was 21, I joined casinos when I was 17 in training, and I joined and I was there and I worked in Cardiff, Wales for like 3 years. And there was a lot of people there that I worked with who, you know, worked all over the places in Bahamas and South Africa, you know, all over the, you know, the world, right? And I remember the hardest time was for me to initially go, okay, I'm going to leave my home where I grew up with, all my friends, my family, and go and work abroad. And eventually I went to work in Israel, and it was like with 2 friends, and we went there, and we ended up, like, when we got there, we found, oh my God, an illegal casino, and it was a crazy story, and it was actually fun. And but that was probably the best thing I have ever happened to me, because it was like, oh my God, you know, going to a different country to work with I didn't speak the language, I didn't know anybody there, and it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of scary. And the first time I did it, I was like, my God, what took me so long to do it? Why did I wait 3 years to actually, you know, pass up other opportunities to leave? And then I came back, I'm like, I can't wait to do this again, right? And then I just kept traveling. I was like, at the end, I was like, okay, you know, I'd phone up these agencies. I was like, yeah, let's just go, man. You know, and I'd have a backpack, and I, you know, literally a suit caddy with my tuxedos in and stuff like that. My backpack, and I'd be like, yeah, where do you need? Where can I give me opportunities to work all over the place? But I think it was the initial fear of like, oh no, it can end bad. But me, it was like, oh man, this could be awesome. I was trying to felt like, you know, this could be a really cool opportunity. And if it turns shitty, then so what? I just come back home and just do it again. You know, find something else to do that would be, you know, something. I mean, at the time, you know, I was kind of like yourself, you know, like in 20s. I mean, like I went from like, what was I, 21 to, you know, my like 30s, and I traveled. I just didn't care. It was just like, this is so much fun, and like, I think life is worth living, and we're challenging, and like, because when you're old, you shouldn't look back and go, oh man, I wish I did it. And I think that's kind of cool that what, you know, like, you've lived your life and tried to make it better every year. I think it's a really cool experience.
They really did. Bill Perkins he is an almost billionaire. I think he never crossed that threshold, but he is somebody who is very involved in the poker world. He was a self-made, I believe, gas and oil trader. He has a book called Die with Zero. And it just is that, right? Like, our greatest currency is our time. But the kind of overarching theme of the book is any money you make working that you don't get to spend is hours wasted. And he does talk about, like, you take care of your inheritance for your kids, you take care of all that. Like, it's not about spending every penny and not leaving anything behind. It's about taking care in whatever sense you want, but then making sure that you're in a situation where you get to enjoy your life. And if you don't follow him, and if you like following people on social media, he's a great person to follow, Bill Perkins. Because he offers, for a while, he was on a string of, like, offering crazy prop bets to poker players. Like Jamie Staples, who was in one of the pictures, him and his brother were 200 pounds difference in weight, maybe, and he something like that. It was close, and he offered them 20 to 1 on $5,000, maybe 40 to 1. Anyway, it was a lot of money that they couldn't get to within a pound of each other in a year.
Wow.
And like, the one brother, like Matt, was very, 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 very thin, like 120 pounds, like really thin, and Jamie was heavier, and they did, but it's just like, those are kind of that's how he spends his money, is like this fun, and he wants people to pursue and live their best lives and do these things. And there is such a comfort in staying where it's safe, right? Like, it is. And anytime somebody tries to escape, to exceed past, there's internal pressure to stay within your groups, and also people like, why isn't this good enough for you? Why? Like, what's wrong with going and getting a good job, earning a good living, and settling down, having a family, and doing those things? And for most people, that is fine. But I feel like more and more, and even over the last year with all this lockdowns and that, I really feel like people have had the opportunity to have that light go off, where it's just, you don't want to work in the same capacity and then retire at 65 when you can't enjoy what you've worked for. So anyway.
So one of the thing I was going to ask, and because you were kind of talking about, like, John's question about regret, right, and what you missed. This is kind of opposite. So what is something that's happened in your life as a result of poker that, and finish the question however you want, is interesting, that might not be obvious, that it's just was cool or led you on a different path? Yeah.
Everything about how I parent my kids. Everything. Just being open to a growth mindset, being open to have curiosity, being open to realizing that maybe you don't naturally know how to parent, and that's okay. Like, that it's okay to learn, and that it's okay to change your mind at any step. Like, I could change my mind now about something. And the most extreme example, and it feels like there's a part of me that's like, don't say it, Adrienne. But, like, I assumed I would spank my kids. And I mean, that's always, I don't even know if it's as big of a topic anymore. And I didn't see, like, any reason as to why, but the studies are clearly there. Like, don't hit small children. Don't hit anybody, like, and it's because of poker, because of basically always being open to critically analyzing what I've done and how to do it better tomorrow, later today, next week, next year. I just have always been open, a lot more open to receiving feedback, to receiving differing opinions, even if I still hold on to my opinion at the end of the conversation, but also then just allowing that, oh, okay, allowing your mind to be changed. It's like those memes where somebody says, like, whatever statement, change my mind. I love that. Like, yes, change their mind, because I really feel like being able to hear discussions and hear information allows you to just make the best decisions. When it comes to homeschooling the kids, when it comes to anything, it's it has definitely shaped it all. Yeah.
Sorry, one of the, I spent like 19 years in casinos and traveled all over the place. And I think that one of the greatest opportunities and it gave to me was to meet different people from different backgrounds, from different countries, like literally all over the world. I mean, like I worked in countries and shipped for 6 years. So there was always like thousands and maybe millions of different like points of view that I probably met in that entire 19 years. And I think that probably helped me more to become, I wouldn't say a better person, but a more open to different ideas than if I'd have stayed in Cardiff and only listened to my friends or talk to my small group of friends, right? So do you think poker gave you that opportunity because you traveled a lot, you met a lot more people that you typically wouldn't have met, maybe as being an occupational therapist in, I'm not sure if you're in Edmonton, but in Alberta, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So do you think that that's what made you now more open to the idea of maybe there's a different perspective on different things?
I wonder, because I feel like, and maybe it was part of being a 20-something-year-old girl in the poker world. Like, I feel like I met people that were all kind of cut from the same cloth, despite being from different backgrounds. Like, I just met so many wonderful people in the poker world. And I think that's not everybody's experience, because there's definitely some poker players that, okay, yeah, they're not great. But I, for the most part, made some really good friendships. And it was more so neat to see the commonalities despite being raised in such different ways. And even with my experiences within being a pro with PokerStars, I was exposed to a lot of different people, Brazilians, Spanish, from Portuguese, Greek, like so many different people. And I think I found more in common than more different, at least in the circles that I felt. But that was really exciting to me, was maybe because in my circles, I felt like a bit of a unicorn in that there wasn't anybody else doing what I was doing.
That's interesting. So kind of going towards the end, how did poker lead to other career opportunities for you?
Yeah. So I've moved away from poker in terms of being on the felt playing, and I still play here or there, but it's not at any sort of volume that would qualify me as a pro anymore. Now I'm back to being a recreational plus, as I call it. But what happened was in 2011, 2011 was when I met Ryan. 2012, I was introduced to a mindset coach whose name is Elliot Rowe. And I didn't really think much of it, but my partner, Ryan, he was like, this is the real deal. Like, let's give this a try. And Elliot used hypnosis to be able to basically uncover limiting beliefs, uncover anything that was affecting you in your day-to-day life. Like whenever you were having reactions that weren't in line with what you wanted or what was best for your bankroll or anything. He was a performance coach and was able to like draw out and really shed some light, show you some of your blind spots. And Elliot and Ryan formed a partnership very early on. And over the last few years, over the last 10 years, I've used hypnosis as a client myself to be able to get the most out of my day, the most out of my life, and make sure that I showed up as a poker player and wasn't making mistakes that were costing me money. And then over the last few years, Elliot had been knocking on my door saying, like, you need to come do this. You need to do some training, become a hypnotist and start coaching with us. So over the last year and a half, I have been working as a performance and mindset coach with Prime Mind. And I have clients all over the world who, some are business people, some are poker people, but they all primarily entrepreneurs, but they're all people who just really know that there's a next level available to them. There are people who see that they're in these loops or that they keep running into these same blockades. And through the use of hypnosis and the way Elliot has mentored and taught, we're able to like break past these barriers so they can achieve next level results. And so I have clients who are poker players in in Dubai. I have clients who play online. I have business people. I have a client who is purely a business client, and it's one of my favorites. She's in her 60s, and she just really knows that like there's more to it, that there's more available to her in this life, and she is by far one of my favorite clients because it's just like such a great field where you see that you never have to stop learning. You never have to stop growing.
I remember the first time I kind of, I think I knew they existed, but had really not put more than 5 seconds of thought to like life coaches, right? Life coaches, leadership coaches, mindset coaches, performance coaches. And it was only maybe a year or two ago where I really kind of got exposed to it by going to like a conference or something like that and did a free thing. And I can't remember who, but someone said to me, well, like athletes have coaches, like coach, and they make you better and da, 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 da. Like, why wouldn't you have a life coach? Like, of course it's going to be beneficial. And I was like, it is really that simple. And no one has ever like said that to me or made me think about it that way. And so I've done a little bit of stuff with life coaches, and they're helpful. I was surprised how impactful it could be and how long it took me to learn kind of about, getting coaching for your life, right? It's more important than when you were learning sports, as great as sports are.
Yeah. And just, I mean, being open to being coached is like a great indicator for being able to improve your situation. And for some clients, that means that showing up as the most confident version of themselves. For some clients, it means just liking who they are, understanding and embracing that this is who they are today and they can be better. You can use hypnosis for anything. If you look at the list of things, right? There's stage hypnosis, which is super fun too. I was always the girl in the crowd who the stage hypnotist would say something and I'd be and so like that's I was always the one pretending to have sex with a chair or something. But
were you the one that like put you in the two chairs and they would stand on? Like those ones?
Yeah. Sure, anything. Yeah. But the mind is just so powerful, and that's every day I get that opportunity to have people change their lives and impact their lives in really profound ways just by getting curious about your emotions, getting curious about what happens, you're feeling like before you go live, the first time you do something, if you get this feeling here, well, when was this first time you had this feeling? Oh, it was maybe you were 4 years old walking into kindergarten and you didn't know where to sit and you didn't know if somebody would make fun of you and you didn't know what you would do without your father, your mother, your whatever, your teddy bear. And our brains are these just unconscious comprehensible machines that are machines of such efficiency. If we had to think about everything we did in our day, like picking up a glass of water, it'd be like, okay, tighten your shoulder, tighten your elbow, get your arm, do. No, somebody can get a glass of water and you know the size to put your hand because your brain already has it coded. So when you're a kid, your brain is coding all the time. And sometimes that coding just doesn't serve you anymore. So with the work I do, we do a lot of regression, and we get back to these moments in kindergarten where it's like, okay, well, just tell that little you to sit down and they're going to be okay. And it sometimes seems a little bit, okay, that seems weird, or that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it sure was when you were that little and your brain coded like, I'm scared, I'm not safe. What if they don't like me? And now 30 years later, 40 years later, you're having some of these same feelings. And when you start to be able to access your subconscious mind, which is everything, you then are able to unlock levels that are beyond even what I understand. And I think I understand a lot.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Adrienne did some sessions for the company I used to work for, and we did them as a group. And the feedback that we got from the people that were working there was really good. Like, people were like really surprised at how like they could access some of that like childhood stuff that you're talking about, especially like doing it within a group setting. So yeah, there was a lot of really good feedback when we did that. I mean, I've found it really interesting. I've learned a lot about it, obviously, because Adrienne and I are friends since she started doing it. And yeah, it's some pretty cool stuff. So I did throw up the Prime Mind link. So that's there's also a Prime Mind app, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
I was looking for the logo. It's a purple logo with that's not this one. It's got a squiggly line. But we have a Prime Mind app which has hundreds of primers, which are little short hypnosis meditations that you can do for anxiety, for sleep, for concentration, for performance, for baseball even. And there's 7-day free trial on the app. You're certainly welcome to explore and see that. But my kids fall asleep to Prime Mind every night.
That's my favorite one for going to sleep. I definitely use it the most for that.
Yeah. And it's just, when you're able to wake up in the morning and start your morning excited for what's in your path, even if it's stuff that you'd rather not do, you'd rather not face, things you'd been procrastinating on. When you get to wake up and you're excited to do it, and then at the end of the day, you're able to shut it out and be grateful and let it go, you just allow yourself to sleep better, exist better, live better. Mm-hmm. And I highly recommend it.
So how did you get into it? Was it just Elliot wore you down, kept asking? Is that basically how it happened?
That's a good question. So it was such an interesting spot for me because occupational therapy, I loved being an occupational therapist. And for people who don't know, occupational therapy is function-based. So basically, we help people overcome illness, disability, whatever it is they're facing, to be independent in what matters to them. So it's very client-driven and it's very individual, even within the context of working in the hospital. And so I used to work on the trauma unit at the U of A hospital. And, you would see people who had gone through unimaginable traumas. You would see people who had minor traumas, which, after a few years on the trauma unit, you kind of harden up a little bit and you're like, okay, suck it up. But you could really see that people responded differently to the same injuries and people healed differently from the same injuries. And I was really passionate on being able to reframe how clients and patients looked at their injuries and how they could see their lives moving forward with their injuries. So that was the mindset piece of it was really integral for me at that stage. And then when I was able to start playing poker, I never wanted to let go of working in the hospital, because poker, you don't help a lot of people unless you're really intentional with how you spend your earnings. Like, for the most part, I'm trying to take your money away from you. And, it wears you down a little bit. And I did want to get back into helping, but I didn't want to start a private practice. I didn't want to get back into the hospitals. And so the opportunity really was such a good fit, because now I help people with, again, overcoming whatever they're facing to achieve results that they want. Like, I have clients right now. I have a client right now who his goal is to have $20 million in the bank. And I think he'll get there, and poker gives me such an interesting background, because when you start talking about numbers like this, it feels intensely impossible for a lot of people, because of the stories we tell ourselves, because of what we've learned, because of what we've encoded into our minds, into our bodies, as to what's available or even what's okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I don't know. Elliot wore me down, I guess, but also I overcame any nervousness that I had about, really being able to help be that gateway for people to just really have an understanding as to where their potential lay, and what they could do, what's available to them, without any of the thoughts that hold them back.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, if anyone wants more information about that stuff, I had the Prime Mind up there. Adrienne's also at mindsetcoach.com at Adrienne Carter. And those links and her handle, Talonchick, are in the description, or the description for the different channels. So you can find them there too if you want to check out more. I think there's one photo I wanted to go back. This is like, out of order, but I want to talk about them anyway, just because I'm, a narcissist today. But was these? So these are from our 30th birthdays, both of our 30th birthdays. So the top left, at the top left, I looked back. This is actually from your 29th birthday. I went back and checked what that one was.
Look at the UFC in the background there.
Oh yeah.
That's just interesting.
Do you want to talk about these, Adrienne?
I guess my memory is not great, right? I like it. It's so funny. Wait, I think you tell the story better. Because yeah. Memories are shaped by perception and emotion in the moment, which is why two people can see the same thing and remember totally different things.
Yeah. Usually I'm the one that doesn't remember.
which is the situation here, but I 100% validate your memory of it, because it totally seems accurate. So please go ahead.
So just the one on the right is my 30th birthday. So my birthday's in June, Adrienne's is in November. And so I'm very subdued. I don't like big parties for my birthday. I just like hanging out with some close friends. And so Adrienne, respected that for the most part. It was a small group, which was perfect. But then we went pole dancing. So that was totally outside my comfort level. We ended up having a great time. There was I think 8 of us or something like that. It's very private. It's your own little private class. So we had a lot of fun. And then I think a patio somewhere on White Avenue, and that's my perfect birthday. Even I think my parents stopped by, which for me that was cool for me, because that's just how I roll. But Adrienne, growing up with Adrienne, she is the opposite of me. She likes her birthday more than anyone on the planet, I think. I think she's toned down.
My kids. My Kian knows it's 84 days till his birthday.
So I think it's toned down a little bit, especially once you have kids, because then they become more of a focus. But I remember Adrienne was pregnant with her daughter, who's the youngest, and it was October 31st. And she's like, doesn't she know she has to come before November? November's my month. And she came on November 1st, to Adrienne's chagrin.
Indeed.
But Adrienne's birthday is November 15th, and I wanted to surprise her for her 30th. So I planned this trip to Jasper with, I don't know, I think there was about 8-10 of us. I don't remember the exact number. And I knew she would kind of expect something for her 30th. So we actually did 2 surprise parties. I did a surprise party like closer to, because I planned this whole big trip to Jasper. And then I was like, I'm just going to take the picture off for a sec. And then I was like, well, if we don't and it was like after her birthday. So I was like, if we don't do something on the weekend, like that's closer to her birthday, she's going to wonder like what happened. So I'm like, well, now I have to do this other thing. So we surprised her the weekend before in Edmonton. So to throw her off the scent of the actual surprise, which was going to Jasper. And so, yeah, when we went to Jasper, just showed up at I think your work friends had taken you out for lunch for your birthday. And so we just showed up and took her to Jasper. And I think you're pretty surprised. I think we were pretty
I was totally surprised.
So the bottom left. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So you slow played your birthday surprise.
Big time. So the bottom left is the first surprise. It was just at a local bar, a chain bar. I don't remember which bar it was, but it was a chain of something like a Hudson's or something.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And then the middle was in Jasper. Adrienne was opening her gift. I feel like I put a lot of little gifts in there that like were nostalgic or something, but I don't remember what was in there. And so once she opened them all, she thought getting in the bag was the next correct move. So
there were boxes upon boxes upon boxes, like all these little boxes.
Right. Yeah. So you remember some stuff that I don't. And then this is the last photo I wanted to get in there. Alex and I just got back from Victoria and spending time with Adrienne and her family, and those are her kids. And Alex posted this on Facebook, and he said, "This is what happiness looks like." And I don't think I could agree anymore. Those are her kids.
Those are great pictures.
Yeah, they're so cute. So at the top, do you care if their names are on here, Adrienne?
Yeah, fire away.
So the top is Carrick. He's 7, right? Just shortly turned 7.
Just turned 7.
The bottom upside down is Kian. He's 4 and turns 5 in September. Yep. And Katie Bird, Caitlin, girl is 2.5. She'll be 3 on November 1st. And not October 31st.
Not Halloween, like she was supposed to. She was due. I mean, it's such a neat existence, to be honest. Like I adore my kids. They drive me crazy. Like they drive me absolutely crazy, especially after this week of heat. Like because there's no air conditioning here. And it's been a stressful week. So believe me, I am not perfect, but we have so much fun. And I think our kids have really, they show it.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool to spend time with Adrienne's family. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I was just going to say, so like your mum was like encouraging when you kind of took a kind of like segue from your normal career path. Would you be as cool for your kids if they take a segue from a regular career path? You know, like going to university, get a stable regular job. Are you going to be as cool as your mom?
As long as they live with me, forever. As long as they don't move out, that's fine. They can do whatever they want. That is really true. I think we had this conversation when Michelle was here. I was like, I'm definitely going to be that mother who is like
live here forever.
Has a 16-year-old, and I'm like, I packed your lunch here. I don't pack their lunch now because we don't homeschool, but do you know? It's just. It really, I just hope that all 3 of them, and I assume all 3 of them will be so much better than I am. A better parent, better person, better everything.
That's a good thought.
And I in both ways can't wait to see it and want to freeze time.
Yeah, freeze it. So Adrienne and I have talked many times. Like, we're 6 months apart, not even. And I have a 22-year-old son, and she has a 2-year-old daughter. So we've always been in very different stages of our life, and I've always managed to stay very close friends. I'm very grateful for her friendship. John's daughter just graduated high school. John, those pictures were gorgeous. Your daughter's beautiful. But
Yeah,
I
thanks.
really like that one you captured the other day that you talked about with her walking down the steps. It's just such a beautiful photo.
Honest to God, that was like so accidental. I'm like, the first one was like obviously planned. It's like me and my daughter. She's 18 and she's stunning. But that's not even her best feature. She's like super funny. She's smart and she's kind and she just happens to be pretty, right? That's just kind of like an afterthought, right? So it's a graduation. She had a picture with me and it was a beautiful picture. But the one I really liked, to be honest, the most was she was walking down the stairs at the ledge, and my wife took a picture of her, just walking down the stairs. It was like on an iPhone. It wasn't even like a big camera or anything. It was like on her iPhone 11 or whatever it is, 10. And she took a picture, and I was like, oh my God, I love this picture. And I was like, okay, I'm going to post it. And I was going to say, oh my God, I love this picture. It just looks wonderful. And she's going to go to U of A, university in September. So we're all so proud of her, right? She's hopefully shows we did some things right.
Yeah, exactly. Adrienne put that really well, right? You want them to be better than you. That's the goal, for sure. I want you to. I don't.
No, to be honest, so maybe Adrienne, I want to maybe disagree. I don't want them to be better than me at certain things. Other things, sure, not everything. There's certain things I'm like, no. I still want to beat it at cards. I still want to beat it at board games. I still want to be funnier than her. Not everything to be better than me. I mean, yeah.
Right.
Obviously, some things I'm shitty at. I'm like, yeah, you can have that one.
You can have that one.
I don't give a shit about that one. You can have that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's been such an interesting, because I don't know how old I was when Carrick was born, 34 or whatever. Having kids later, it just gives us such a different perspective in some sense. And yeah. Mm-hmm. I go back and forth between wishing I had them much younger and thinking it was right when we did. I mean, obviously, I enjoyed my 20s to the max, I think.
There's pros and cons.
I have 3 kids too. My last, I was 39, I think, 38 when I had my last son. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was more experienced. To be honest, if it was any younger, I probably wasn't ready. Right? Maybe having it older. I mean, was it Charles Dickens? Charlie Chaplin had one who was 77. So I mean, who knows? I'm not going to have one at 77.
That's for sure. Is that a fact or a thought, John?
Oh, no, it's a fact. I'm not going to have one at 77.
You can't say that for sure.
I tell you what, I have a medical certificate saying I am not having kids right after now, from this moment on. And if I do, it's a lottery win for me.
I had a client once who was something in his 70s, and his wife came in with his baby daughter, and he kind of whispered to me, I would say, she's like, it was an accident, but it was the best accident. And I was just like,
wow,
because I was 23 at the time, and I was just like, what?
I don't know what to say to that.
I did not learn this in Bio 20. I did not learn.
Oh yeah, it should be there. It should be bio. It should be taught to kids. In bio. My daughter just graduated, and now my son's going to be in grade 12 next year. Be like, oh yeah, majority of the kids are probably going to be an accident after a drunken night out. So just so you know, warning. Big ass. Highlight it.
Okay, so it's 10:02. We probably should wrap up, but I did send my a little reminder. The story about the doctor and your kids, and I think that's a funny story, and they should tell it anyway, even though the ages and stages questionnaire.
It was this week. So when I was growing up, kids had pediatricians. In BC, kids don't have pediatricians. Pediatricians are consult doctors. And just with my background in medical, I'm like, my kids need to see a pediatrician. Like they have a special condition. They are children. and and that is enough of a special condition. But both of my boys have a little bit low iron and it's been continuous. So I had asked just to have a referral anyway. So I was just talking to our nurse practitioner and we're having a virtual call. And she was telling me that like what she wanted me to do was get them to get me, and I still haven't done it actually, is fill out an ages and stages questionnaire for a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, because just then that way they get the collateral history as to, can they throw a ball, can they walk in a straight line, can they stand on one foot, like can you do all these like basic the milestones. And the boys started fighting, like really fighting, and they were fighting over poker. They were playing poker in the other room. And my older son stacked the 4-year-old. And it was mayhem, absolute mayhem. And I was just laughing because I'm like, she's asking me to like fill out like comprehension and like what skills can they count? Can they do all these things? And I'm like, I wonder if she can, she could hear them fighting. Like, I wonder if I should just tell her that they're fighting over a
poker game.
Pot limit Omaha.
I'm really hoping that your sons are fighting because you're like, how dare you splash the pot? It's
like, why did you call that pre-flop? What? Like, that's garbage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, what are you doing? Oh yeah, man, he went all in on just useless cards. I just can't believe it. And my son, he was so mad, and he just dropped the other one. Oh, he's just crazy.
I was just laughing. I'm like, I don't know if she would be like, that's amazing, or call Child Protective Services.
Right, or just appalled, right?
You rivered me. I had the best hand.
So is that like an out of school thing? Is poker is like extracurricular activities? Because you're homeschooling them. It's like, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, then we have throwing ball, hitting ball, and poker. Okay, life skill.
Basically, our homeschool curriculum right now is baseball, Star Wars, poker. What else do we do? They go to an art class periodically. They learn a bit of French, and they read. I mean, my 4-year-old reads, so we're okay.
Yeah, yeah, you're okay. Your kids are doing just fine.
In math, they calculate percentages, favorites, who's gonna win, odds.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're coming to an end here. It's 10:05. We're 5 minutes over. I can't thank you enough for coming on. It was so cool to hear you talk about even some stuff I didn't know. And is there anything else? Final words, final shout outs that you have?
Final words, final shout out. Reach out. Like if anybody wants to find out more about Prime Mind, about the app, about the coaching I do, message me on Instagram at Talonchick. You can email me, Adrienne@mindsetcoach.com. And just be curious. That's the ultimate takeaway. It's just when you have a reaction or you have a thought, just think to yourself, like, is that a thought or a fact? Am I interpreting something, or is this the truth? Because a lot of times things feel like the truth, but they're not. Mm-hmm. And if you just allow yourself to be curious, no judgment, just allow yourself to be curious. Mm-hmm. See what happens. Because as kids, right, we and listen, I tell my kids the same thing, to just because I said so. But we try to get our kids to stop being curious because it's annoying. Because getting asked why so many times is like, okay, I'm all done. You have used up all my answer bank today. But see if you can find it as an adult, that ability to be curious again, and just see what happens in your life.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Cool. Any final words, John?
No, this has been really cool. Adrienne, you've led a really cool and interesting life, and I really enjoyed kind of like listening to your stories today. And this is, to be honest, this is really like one of the reasons why I do this is because it gives us the opportunity to meet people that I probably would have never met, right, and have a conversation with, and just to listen to different perspectives and some cool stories, right? And by the way, I have 3 kids too, and sometimes, oh my God, they're annoying. And I'm like, okay, it's time for me to take a nap. You're all grown up now. I need to take a nap because you're making me want to sleep. But no, but it's been great, and I really do think, I think it's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much. It's so fun. I tune in and watch you all when I am able. It kind of falls at bedtime sometimes. So
yeah, when the Oilers are playing, which is not right now.
And to be honest, Jay does a great job of editing all this, like 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever, into the podcast. And like he's so good, he even makes me sound quite smart. So the podcast is really kind of cool, right? So if you could do one thing, sign up for the podcast. Whoever's watching, sign up for the podcast because Jay does a great job.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, subscribe to the YouTube and join us. They do this every Wednesday live, but the podcasts are a good way to get the stuff too. So for sure.
podcasts are so good.
Yeah, I love podcasts.
There's a Prime Mind podcast too with Elliot.
There is. He does a lot of like interesting people as well, right? He has like, it's very different from different walks of life. He does very interesting guests on that podcast as well. Yeah. It's the Prime Mind podcast, right? That's what it's called. Yeah.
You bet.
Okay. Thanks again, Adrienne. Talonchick.
Talent.
Thanks a lot, guys. This was so much fun.
Yeah.